Sinister secrets exposed, 7 spine-chilling tales revealed by Mr. Night Scares after dark. The cul-de-sac lay shrouded in the dusk, its neatly trimmed lawns at odds with the strange shadows that slunk among them. Sarah, a 34-year-old single mother, felt the weight of her world pressing down as she glanced nervously at her neighbors, those friendly faces that had once been a source of comfort but now felt like masks hiding something dark. The laughter of her children, 10-year-old Emily and 7-year-old Jake, echoed in her ears as they played, but an unsettling chill crawled up her spine, murmuring secrets in the evening. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows, Sarah recalled the warnings whispered by her late grandmother, the tales of a hidden terror festering beneath their seemingly idyllic town. She had dismissed them then, chalking them up to old superstition, but now they rattled around in her mind like ice in a glass, beckoning a fear she struggled to shake off. The moment Mr. Thompson appeared on his porch with that unsettling smile, the air shifted. He had always been the handyman, always offered help, but now he felt like a lurking predator, observing from the darkness. She felt her pulse quicken, her breath hitching as Emily and Jake chattered about shadows that crept along their walls at night, shadows that weren't just tricks of the light. Something was wrong, something deeper than she dared recognize. Rummaging through boxes from her late grandmother's attic, Sarah unearthed an ancient locket, its surface engraved with curious symbols. The weight of it was heavy, like the atmosphere around her. Legends told of a pact made by the town's founders, dark and sinister, the kind of story designed to frighten children into behaving. But those tales felt too close to home, too real, as the shadows began to strangle the light. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah closed the box, the darkness seemed to hum around her. Suddenly, she was jolted by a crashing sound from the backyard. Her hands trembled as she walked to the window. Outside, Mr. Thompson was in her yard, fixing her broken fence, a thin veil of sweat on his brow, his back turned to her, yet she felt those icy eyes bore into her. A sense of dread filled her as he turned slightly, and she saw his smile not just unsettling but almost predatory. She could no longer ignore the whispers of danger. She noticed the peculiar way her neighbors watched, their smiles stretching a little too wide, their eyes glinting with something unspoken. The pit in her stomach deepened. Was everything she believed about her cozy community a mirage? A thin curtain drawn over something monstrous, with children's nightmares growing stranger night by night and a sour stench lingering in her home, she began to piece together the horror. Her pleas for help at the local station were dismissed with amused eye rolls. "Nothing is wrong, ma'am," the officer had said, with a tone laced with condescension, but as Sarah shoved her hand into the pocket of her jacket, gripping that cursed locket, she felt a growing resolve. Whatever was festering in their suburb, she couldn't let it consume her family. The last thing she saw before shutting the window was Mr. Thompson's smile, that same smile that felt more like a threat, unfurling slowly in the twilight. Who could she trust? The facade of suburban life was cracked, and the darkness behind it invited them in, inching closer, until it whispered their names. And in that moment, Sarah realized that the monsters weren't lurking in the shadows, they were part of the very fabric of her community, sewn into a tapestry of betrayal. The night deepened, cocooning the cul-de-sac in a blanket of oppressive silence. Sarah's heart raced as she sat on her couch, the flickering light of the television throwing ghostly shadows across the room. The sounds of laughter had long since faded outside, replaced now by an unsettling stillness that clawed at her thoughts. Every creak of the house felt like a warning sign, echoing her fears. Jake and Emily had already fallen asleep, their innocence a stark contrast to Sarah's turbulent mind. She glanced at the staircase, the darkness at the top feeling like a lurking presence, watching her. Grabbing a blanket, she wrapped it around her as if it could shield her from the weight of dread pressing down on her. The locket hung heavy around her neck, its cold surface pulsating against her skin. It felt wrong, bizarrely out of place, as if it held secrets that were never meant to see the light of day. What had her grandmother known? Had she performed some desperate act to keep the darkness at bay? Suddenly, the brittle silence shattered. A knock at the door echoed through the hallway, sharp and jarring. Sarah's heart jumped into her throat. Who could it be? The clock on the wall ticked ominously, each tick a countdown to an unforeseen revelation. Another knock. Louder this time, trembling, she moved towards the door, each step weighted with uncertainty. Peering through the peephole, she nearly gasped. Mr. Thompson stood there, his hands clasped casually, that same predatory smile plastered across his face. Her breath quickened. What did he want at this hour? Sarah, he called, his voice silky and low, just wanted to check in. Heard some noises. His eyes glimmered with amusement, every syllable dripping with malice. Everything's fine. Thank you, she managed to stammer, jolting back from the door, her heart racing. Are you sure? He leaned closer, his breath fogging the glass. Can I come in? No. The word escaped her lips before she could catch it. Just then, the sound of a child's soft whimper echoed from the upstairs room. Terror slashed through her, and all at once, the reality hit her. Jake and Emily were vulnerable while she lingered with that monster just outside. Sarah, is someone in there? Mr. Thompson's smile widened, revealing teeth that looked too sharp, eyes narrowing with predatory hunger. You don't want anything to happen to those sweet kids, do you? Stay away from them. Her voice was shaky yet defiant, filled with a protective fierceness she didn't know she possessed. The laughter that followed was chilling, a sound that reverberated through the door like ice cracking beneath pressure. I just want to help. His tone shifted, all friendliness fading into something darker. The doorknob rattled unexpectedly. Panic surged through her veins. What do you want? She yelled, backing away. Let me in and I can show you what they don't want you to see. In that moment, the room felt alive. Shadows seemed to twist and curl in the corners, whispers brushing her ears, and for the first time, the locket against her breast felt like a beacon, drawing her closer to the dark secrets that lay buried within her community. Then silence fell, weighing heavily once again. Had he left? Heart pounding, she decided to check on her children, needing to ensure they were safe. But as she turned away from the door, she caught a glimpse of movement outside. Mr. Thompson had stepped back, but he was not alone. A figure loomed at the edge of the dim street light, a figure she recognized, its features distorted under the shading of the night. The icy tendrils of fear wrapped around her as she spotted other neighbors gathering, their faces obscured, yet she felt their eyes on her, hungry, expectant. What have you done? She whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. But as she crept upstairs, shadows danced along the walls, the whispers grew louder. Was there a pact she had become unwittingly tied to? And what would they do to protect their wickedness? In the darkened corridor, an unsettling realization dawned, the real monster behind the smiles wasn't just Mr. Thompson, it was the whole damned street. What could she do to protect her children, to break the cycle of horrors bound in this cursed place? As the shadows clawed closer, Sarah knew one thing: she had to make a choice. The darkness awaited. Would she confront the truth, or live in blissful ignorance? As she reached the top of the stairs, Sarah's throat tightened, each breath a rasp against the chilling air. The faint whimpers grew louder, pulling her towards the room where Jake and Emily slept. She tiptoed cautiously, the old floorboards creaking beneath her weight, each sound echoing in the stillness like an alarm. She paused at the door, the handle cold in her palm. What if they were in danger? The thought of Mr. Thompson lurking just outside gnawed at her mind more than the shadows that threatened to swallow her whole. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open. The room was dim, moonlight filtering through the curtains, casting elongated shadows around her children. They lay peacefully in their beds, their innocent faces illuminated in soft silver. A wave of relief washed over her for a fleeting moment, but it quickly faded as she strained to listen. The whimpering came again, this time more distinct. Whispers flitted through the dark, creeping like a fog into her consciousness. "Mommy," Jake murmured, his voice cracking as he stirred in his sleep, clutching the sheets tightly. "Shoo, sweetheart, it's okay." Sarah rushed to his side, brushing her fingers through his hair, hoping her touch could banish the lingering fears. But her mind raced back to the door. The neighbors were out there, and Mr. Thompson's gaze would still be on her forever, seeping into the cracks of the house like an insidious mist. As she settled in beside her son, Emily stirred awake, her wide eyes meeting Sarah's with a mixture of confusion and fear. "Mommy, I heard someone." Sarah smiled, trying to mask her own terror. "It's just a bad dream, honey. Just close your eyes and breathe." But the air felt thick, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone, even with Mr. Thompson's disturbing presence waiting outside. As her children settled back into uneasy sleep, she felt the need to protect them heighten, intensifying like a pulse through her veins. She had to learn what was happening, what held her community in its chokehold. Her legs itched with the desire to move, to investigate. But how could she leave them? Just beyond the door, danger lurked, and she would not risk her children for her own fears. But something enticed her. Adrift whispers spoke promises of truth, of buried secrets that could offer salvation or destruction. Hesitantly, she rose and edged toward the bedroom door. The shadows swept around her, shifting with every step. She glanced back one last time at her children cradled in the innocence of childhood, blissfully unaware of the evil at bay. Opening the door just a crack, she peered down the dimly lit staircase. The shadows downstairs seemed to beckon her, whispering secrets she could not yet comprehend. Suddenly, a sound echoed from the lower corridor, the unmistakable creak of the front door swinging wide open. Heart racing, she barely dared to breathe. This could be it. The moment where everything she knew could shatter. She had to find out what was happening before it snatched her family away. Steeling herself, she stepped into the corridor, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, aware that in her quest for truth, she might just unearth more horrors than she ever imagined. As she descended the stairs, a figure emerged at the bottom, faintly illuminated by the dwindling light. A chilling laugh reverberated off the walls, sending a shudder through her. It was Mr. Thompson, grinning wider than before, his laughter spilling into the darkness like poison. "Are you ready, Sarah?" he taunted, eyes glistening with sinister glee. The truth is just a few steps away. What truth awaited her? And could she face it without losing everything? The sickly sweet scent of moss and damp wood permeated Sarah's senses as she descended the last few steps, drawn by Mr. Thompson's laughter, the sound twisting in her gut like a knife. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to retreat into the safety of her children. But fear mixed with a burning curiosity, creating a fire that propelled her forward. "Thompson, what do you want?" She tried to keep her voice steady, though it quavered at the edges, betraying her terror. "Want?" he echoed, delight twinkling in his eyes like shards of glass. "Oh, Sarah, it's not what I want. It's what you need to understand." He stepped closer, shadows licking at his heels, dark and hungry. With each step he took, Sarah's heart thudded harder, the sound echoing in her ears. She felt trapped between the urge to run and the compulsion to uncover the truth. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, a bitter taste forming in her mouth. His smile widened, revealing teeth that looked as sharp as a predator's. "Then let me show you." He waved his arm dramatically, the fabric of his jacket fluttering like a dark specter, inviting her to follow. A sudden rush of impatience washed over her. How could he expect her to trust him? Yet the air thickened and seemed to hum with secrets begging to be unraveled. Just stay back," she shouted, stepping back, her pulse racing. The basement loomed before her, an abyss of darkness seeming to stretch far beyond its physical boundaries. "Please," he murmured, leaning closer, so close she could see the strange flicker of something dark and alive in his pupils. "They don't understand. None of them do." The words dripped with a twisted sincerity that sent chills spiraling down her spine. "But you're different. You seek the truth." Her legs felt wobbly, as if the very ground beneath her were shifting. She caught a glimpse of movement behind him, in the shadows a flicker of something that made her breath hitch. "What's down there?" she croaked. "An awakening," he replied, unfazed. "A rebirth." Suddenly, the neighbor's haunting whispers drifted through her thoughts, an echo of warnings long ignored. Memories of late-night conversations at the PTA meetings, canning jars filled with strange substances, excursions to the woods, history lurking just beneath the surface. She gripped the railing, knuckles white, blood pounding in her ears. "Let me take you where others have failed," he urged, stepping to the side, his eyes never leaving hers. "You felt it too, Haven Tu. The pull of the town's darkness. A chance to understand what really lies behind those innocent faces." The notion that the children could hold answers tormented her. What if they knew something that could reveal the hidden malevolence? "What have you done to them?" she demanded, the words raw and desperate. "Nothing yet," he said smoothly. "But they are the key. Bring them down, and together, we can unearth their destiny." "No. I want." Her voice rose, piercing the heavy silence that followed. "I'll never let you near them." Mr. Thompson laughed again, a chilling sound that sliced through her resolve. "You're a fool to think you can resist this." He leered, his smile tainted with dark promise. "But you will see, Sarah. You shall see." Before she could respond, a loud crash erupted from the kitchen, a sound that shattered the suffocating atmosphere. The echo swept through the house, crumbling her defenses. Instinctively, she whipped around, heart racing as dread consumed her. "Stay here," Thompson shouted, his demeanor shifting as urgency laced his tone, the mask of amusement slipping. "I'll be back. Your children need you." And as he retreated into the shadows, darkness re-enveloped him. Sarah stood frozen, the kitchen-esque crashing haunting her ears. Was it another trick? Or a warning? With a gasp, Sarah froze. A sense of urgency twisted in her stomach, fueling her anxiety. She had to protect her children before whatever unspeakable fate that awaited them could unfold. Stepping back toward the door, she fought against every instinct urging her to flee. But if she didn't follow, what would happen next? The floor beneath groaned, the house shifting as if holding its breath. The air was thick and charged, something malevolent lingered, waiting to strike. As she spun toward the kitchen, heart hammering in her chest, the silence from the basement seemed all too ready to swallow her whole. "Mommy." Her children's voices drifted through her mind, filled with both trust and fear. Would she really face the truth? Or would it consume her entirely? The darkness around her pulsed, a living thing that wrapped cold fingers around Sarah's heart. It felt as if the house itself was breathing, heavy with anticipation. "Mommy." Her children's voices echoed again in her mind, ghostly whispers that clawed at her resolve. She couldn't let fear paralyze her. They needed her. With a jagged breath, Sarah surged forward toward the kitchen, her pulse a frantic drumbeat in her ears. The crash had been loud, too loud for any normal accident. Her footsteps quickened, leading her down the hallway that felt longer with each step. Each shadow seemed to writhe and stretch, a taunting reminder of what lurked within. As she pushed through the kitchen door, her breath hitched in her throat. The room was a wreck, furniture upturned, shattered glass scattered across the floor like ice shards. But there was no sign of her children. A sickening whirl of dread washed over her. Had something taken them? The air held a hint of charred sweetness, a bizarre smell that twisted her stomach. She stumbled forward, eyes wide, trying to make sense of the chaos. A chair lay toppled beside the stove, its legs like skeletal arms reaching out. She caught a glimpse of something dark and sticky pooling beneath it, and horror washed over her. "Where are you?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling, fraying at the edges. "Kids." There was no answer. Silence pressed thickly around her, each second stretching endlessly. She turned, scanning the room, her instincts screaming at her to flee, but she couldn't leave without them. Suddenly, a faint giggle echoed from the living room, a sound so innocent in the midst of the nightmare that it sparked hope. Without thinking, she darted towards the sound, her heart frying with caution. "Is that you?" she called softly, her voice trembling with hope. "Come here." As she stepped into the living room, her heart skipped. There, in the center of the space, stood her children, their backs turned to her, facing the large window. Shadows danced around them like phantoms, intertwining with the light of the dying day. "Mommy!" They chimed in unison, joyfulness that felt so out of place. But something felt off. Sarah squinted, taking cautious steps closer. Their heads bobbed slightly as if someone else was moving them, guiding their tiny forms. Panic rose like bile. "What are you doing? Turn around. Please." They didn't respond. A cold sweat broke out on her skin as she gasped, and the distant tinkle of Thompson's laughter rang in her ears once more. It felt like an echo. What was he doing to them? Then, without warning, they pivoted, their smiles frozen on their faces. Their expressions were blank as if they were looking through her, not at her. The innocence, the familiar bright eyes she knew so well were replaced with a swirling darkness. "Mommy, we can't play with you anymore," said her youngest, the tone chilling her marrow. "We have to wake up." A frigid wave washed over her, and she staggered back, heart pounding in terror. "Wake up? What do you mean?" The children's bodies began to tremble, their limbs jerking unnaturally, like marionettes on a string. "Come join us," they sang eerily, their voices twisting into unison. "We're becoming more. We've seen the truth." Her stomach lurched. She glanced at the window, searching for escape. It felt like a trap, like they were pulling her in, seeking to ensnare her in the same dark fate that threatened to consume them. Panic boiled within her. "No. I won't let you do this," she screamed, her voice jagged and raw. But it was too late. The room shuddered, and the air thickened with dread. Something sinister lurked behind her, pressing close, suffocating her in darkness. Mr. Thompson's laughter pierced the silence once more, a haunting reminder of his twisted invitation. "Sarah," he whispered from the shadows, "it's time to understand." Before she could react, the children's faces twisted, their bodies slowly beginning to convulse uncontrollably as they pointed toward the night consuming the window. And in that moment, as horror gripped her heart, she realized this was just the beginning of something far worse. What truth lay behind that darkness? What awaited her beyond the fragile veil of their innocence? The room trembled with an odd energy, the walls closing in as if eager to embrace the chaos unfolding within. Sarah's breath quickened as she struggled to comprehend the horrific scene before her. "Mommy, help us!" The words dripped from her children's lips, their voices eerily synchronized. Something deep inside her flickered with fear. This was her baby speaking. It was a monstrous mimicry, a dark echo of everything she loved. She turned, desperate for an escape, but the living room transformed into a maze of shadows, the walls shifting, twisting, closing off her paths. Her heart raced. Instinct gripped her every movement, urging her to run, to flee from whatever evil haunted her home. Abruptly, a loud crash erupted from the hallway, jolting her from her frozen haze. The door swung open, revealing the labyrinth of darkness beyond. Sarah hesitated, glancing back at her children, their faces now contorted in grotesque smiles. "Come play with us," they sang again, their laughter ringing hollow, echoing like a taunt, a curse. "No." She bolted past them, sprinting toward the hallway that seemed to stretch endlessly before her. The air felt thick, like running through syrup, each step heavy with dread. The hallway whispered her name, and then, suddenly, there was silence. Not the calm kind of silence, this was oppressive, pregnant with dark intent. With every beat of her heart, shadows flickered, drawing closer like a predator stalking its prey. Panic clawed at her throat as she reached the front door. It loomed ahead, a promise of safety just out of reach. She pushed against it, twisting the knob, but it resisted her desperate grasp. "Let me out!" She screamed, pulling at the door, tearing at it with frantic desperation. Behind her came the sound of movement, the unmistakable crackling of distance being disturbed. She turned to see her children still standing in the doorway, but now their bodies were no longer tethered by cut strings. They floated, feet hovering inches above the ground, faces contorting in ways that shouldn't be possible. "Mommy, don't leave us." Their voices came now, a whispering chorus that sent chills running down her spine. Something sinister lurked in the shadows, crawling nearer, growing stronger with every breath she took. Sarah felt it, a presence that knew her, taunted her fears, a chilling reminder that she was trapped. Time stood still as she retrieved a kitchen knife, its blade glinting on the dim light streaming through the shattered window. She steadied herself, feet planted into the age-old flooring, her resolve hardening like steel. "You'll regret this," she screamed, thrusting the blade forward as the shadows advanced, but they swallowed the light. The knife barely touched the dark mass, the impenetrable wall of night that taunted her with a silent promise of despair. Heart racing, she turned heel and sprinted back down the hallway, the laughter of her children following her like a haunting specter. "Mommy, we're waiting at the end of the hallway." She veered into a small study, scanning frantically for something, anything to defend herself. Papers flew about like startled birds as she shoved furniture aside, desperation fueling her every move. Then, a glint beneath the desk caught her eye, a box of matches. She pounced on it, teeth gritted. Barely a flicker of hope was left inside her, but it was something, and in the face of uncertainty, it breathed a new life into her spiraling thoughts. With trembling hands, she struck a match against the box, the flame blooming alive in the oppressive dark. But the moment it ignited, all hell broke loose. The shadows lunged at her, swirling, shrieking in a cacophony of furious rage. "No!" she screamed, the fire flickering against the hovering darkness, her last chance against an enemy she dared not understand. Was it enough? The walls rattled around her, an unholy symphony rising to a peak of crushing terror. Would the flame vanish just as quickly as it had appeared, leaving her to the whims of the shadows? And as she took her last stand, she wondered, what if the truth she sought was entangled within that very darkness? The house shuddered, whispering its malicious secrets on the edge of revelation. What awaited her when the flames flickered out? The flame flickered, casting a trembling glow that fought against the encroaching darkness. Shadows writhed and twisted, howling as they were momentarily thwarted by the light. But Sarah could see it, the darkness wasn't simply retreating. It was gathering, coalescing into a towering mass, heart hammering. She scanned the room, eyes wide with desperation. What else could she do? The matches lay dwindling in her hand, the fire crackling softly, yet it was a mere candle against the tempest. She felt the weight of time pressing on her like an iron stone, and the ugly truth seeped into her mind. The shadows were not only monsters, they were fed by her fear, fueled by her dread. "Mommy, we're here," the voice echoed, taunting her, as if the darkness had learned every intimate detail of her life. It was her children's voices, but twisted, darkened, a symphony of despair. She stumbled backward, her body frozen in place, paralyzed by the haunting familiarity. Then, from within the swirling mass, a figure emerged. It was small, hunched, with skeletal limbs and milky white skin that seemed to absorb the flickering light. Sarah's mind raced. No, it can't be. The shadowed form curved and twisted until it took on the shape of her eldest, Emma, but it was wrong. Emma's smile was sharp, filled with malice, and her eyes, they shone black as night, swirling with the same malevolent energy that filled the room. "Join us, Mommy," the figure whispered, its voice dripping with venom, a parody of innocence. "Get away from her!" Sarah screamed, launching the match into the darkness. It ignited a small patch of shadow, but more pressed inward, swirling like a boiling cauldron. The heat of the flame wavered, and the shadows hissed, recoiling briefly before pressing forward with renewed ferocity. Sarah backed against the desk, searching frantically for anything that could help her. Papers flapped wildly, yet the light was fading. She had to think, had to act. The knife. It had been worthless against the true darkness, but maybe with a sudden burst of determination, she lunged for it again, gripping the handle tightly. If the shadows were energized by her fear, perhaps something greater than fear could drive them back. She leaped forward, thrusting out the knife in a wild arc toward the mass of shadows swirling around her children's shapes. "Leave them alone!" she shouted, feeling raw energy pour from her heart into the blade, but the darkness laughed an angry cackle that pierced through the room, reverberating in her bones. It wrapped its tendrils around her, pulling her closer. Sarah's skin prickled, her vision narrowing as she felt its grip tightening like a vice. She felt a chill wash over her, as if being submerged in ice-cold water. "No!" she cried, her voice breaking. "You won't take them." With a roar fueled by love and desperation, she brought the knife down at the mass before her, aiming for the blurred outline of Emma. The tip penetrated, and just then, a blinding light erupted. This was no flame or match, it was something different, an ethereal glow that burst forth from within the darkness itself. The shadows shrieked, recoiling violently. Sarah swung the knife frantically, the light expanding like a supernova, dispersing the darkness around her. In that moment, she saw them, the faces of her children's screams replaced by wide-eyed shock. For just a heartbeat, their innocence pierced through the horror, then, everything dissolved. The light snuffed out, leaving her in suffocating silence. Panic swelled as the oppressive stillness returned, pushing against her skin. The shadows whispered through the room, mocking the fleeting moment of clarity. "Mommy, come play." A new voice joined the chorus, dark and rasping, breaking the illusion. It was a tone she didn't recognize. It made her skin crawl, like fingernails scraping across glass. "It won't end until you face the truth." The chill pressed deeper into her bones, her pulse racing. She braced herself for what lay ahead. The whispers spun faster. Would she uncover something even worse hidden in the darkness? Or would facing this new threat illuminate the path to escape? As the echoes faded, dread smothered her spirit. What truth was lying in wait, ready to rise and consume her? The shadows stirred again, a rustling cloud thickening in the corners of the room. Sarah felt their presence coalesce, draping the space in oppressive dread. She took a deep breath, trying to summon her strength, but it felt like a heavy weight pressing on her chest, stealing the air from her lungs. "Face the truth." The voice slithered around her, cold and suffocating, wrapping itself around her mind like a serpent. She trembled, squeezing the knife tighter. What truth? Memories flickered against the dark fabric of her thoughts, laughter, warmth, bedtime stories, all of it ripped away. "Mommy," the twisted voices continued, now layered, like echoes in a canyon. They morphed, took on a rhythmic quality, calling her deeper into despair. "Come back, we miss you." "Shut up!" she screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. Through the flurry of whispers, she focused on one thing: finding her children. Where were they? If the shadows were mocking her, then it meant they were nearby, waiting to emerge from this nightmare. Something shifted behind her. She turned, knife poised, but there was only darkness. The kind that swallowed light whole. Sarah's heart raced. She had to fight back, she couldn't let fear consume her. The shadows seemed to pulse with her fear, and she recognized a pattern: the more she succumbed to panic, the more they advanced, taunting her with the silhouette of a familiar child. But this shape was grotesque, arms stretching too long, eyes burning like dying stars. Drawing on the memory of her children's arms wrapped around her during goodnight hugs, she channeled that warmth. "You're not my children," she shouted, fury igniting within her. "You're not real. Get away from me." The dark spirit shuddered, recoiling slightly as if struck. Maybe there was power in her words. She took a step forward, extending the knife, letting the glimmer of steel concentrate the light. "I will find you," she shouted into the void, conviction driving each word. "I will not lose you." Another figure materialized, smaller, softer. It looked like Emma, but heart-wrenchingly perfect. She moved closer, as if compelled by Sarah's voice. "Mommy, help us." Emma Sarah lunged, reaching out, but the figure hesitated, wavering like a mirage. Suddenly, the darkness roared back to life. Tendrils shot out, binding her limbs, dragging her back into its depths. "Face the truth," it hissed, its voice growing angry, pushing sharp tendrils closer to her throat. Images raced through her mind, her life, choices she had made, moments of joy painted red with regret. "Enough!" she screamed. "I won't be your puppet anymore." With a fierce twist, she pulled the knife from its binds, plunging it into the thick darkness swirling around her. A searing light erupted again, and she felt pressure release just before the shadows recoiled. They writhed in agony, releasing eerie wails. For a brief second, she glimpsed her children trapped in the shadows, their faces pale, eyes wide with terror. "Mommy, please!" they cried, their voices piercing through her heart. Sarah's resolve crumbled. She dropped to her knees, the knife falling from her hand. "I'm coming!" she sobbed, torn by their cries, every fiber of her being screaming to save them. But just as she thought she might find a way, the room plunged back into choking darkness. The last thing she heard was the rasping laughter of the shadowy entity, echoing in her mind, a memory of despair still clinging like smoke. "What you're searching for is never what it seems." Heart-racing, Sarah felt the world closing in. She was lost, battling not only the shadows, but her own demons, and as the chaos swirled, she wondered if she could ever escape this nightmare. Could she find the strength to pierce through the veil? Or would the truth devour her before she got the chance? As despair wrapped around her once more, she knew one thing: time was running out. The darkness tightened around Sarah like a noose, pulling her deeper into its suffocating embrace. Every breath became a struggle, each panicked gasp pulled into the shadows, swirling like a wretched wind. She fought against it, clawed at the air, but the weight of despair pressed her down. "Mommy!" her children's voices echoed once more, a haunting melody of anguish. "Help us!" those words burned through the haze of darkness, igniting a flicker of hope within her. With a surge of defiance, she pushed herself to her feet, determined to face whatever grotesque stage the nightmare set before her. She felt for the knife, its blade cold and reassuring in her palm. The shadows momentarily retreated at her touch, as if sensing the weapon's promise of light. "Show yourselves!" she cried, her voice cutting through the gloom. "If you want the truth, then let it be known." Like smoke meeting flame, shadows began to withdraw. Shapes twisted and contorted, revealing faces that morphed into her children and then into something utterly wrong. Ropes of darkness licked at her skin, pulling and tugging, but she stood firm. "You won't take me again." Suddenly, a cacophony of laughter erupted, all around her. It was not the laughter of her children. No, it was mocking and cruel, a chorus of the tormented. It filled her with dread, but she fought against it, realizing it was meant to weaken her resolve. "Your truth is a lie!" she shouted defiantly. As she spoke, she felt a small spark ignite in her chest. In response, the shadows coiled, writhing like restless serpents. Sarah could feel the temperature drop, a chilling draft winding through the air. Goosebumps prickled her arms, but she stood her ground. The shadows surged forward once more, but this time, she raised the knife high. "Leave me alone." The blade reflected distant light, creating a beacon piercing through the thick curtain of gloom. The laughter ceased abruptly. A deep, foreboding silence enveloped her, heavy and expectant. Then, a darker shape loomed, larger and more horrid than before, its eyes glowing like two red coals. "You think you can escape?" it hissed. "You'll never know peace. The truth waits for you." The rush of words struck like a whip, seizing her breath. For a moment, the world around her faded, and all she could see was the creature before her, its shadow merging with her own fears. "Let me go!" she screamed, the knife trembling in her grasp. One thought dominated her mind: her children needed her. She couldn't back down. Refusing to be the prey, she charged forward, slashing the blade through dark air, the darkness shrieked as her knife connected, a frantic sound that chilled her to the bone. It writhed, recoiling, but she pressed on, driving the blade into the heart of the shadow. For an instant, the hellish landscape flickered. She caught fleeting glimpses of familiar faces grappling with the dark tendrils, unmistakably her children. "Mommy!" They cried out, desperation anchoring each syllable. "Just hold on!" she shouted, fighting through the paralysis of fear latched onto her heart. Each swing of the knife pushed back the shadows, revealing glimpses of color, warmth, and the laughter she craved. But each time she felt a breath of warmth, the darkness returned, threatening to drown her hope with its fury. "What does it want from me?" The thought clawed at her mind. Then, as the shadows merged into a tangible entity, Sarah felt a surge of courage. "The truth may hurt, but it is time for me to face it." With one last desperate stab, she plunged the knife deeper, drawing on the memory of the bright sun on summer days and her children's laughter. A blinding light erupted, forcing the shadows to shriek in a chorus of agony. But as the brilliance enveloped Sarah, she felt a pull, a sensation that warped and twisted reality around her. Then silence fell again, thick and stifling. The light faded slowly, revealing her surroundings had transformed into a different echo of her home, familiar, yet off. "What just happened?" she whispered, breathless. But amid her confusion, a chilling feeling settled deep in her stomach. Had she entered another layer of this horror? Was this merely a pause, a deceptive tranquility before the true terror revealed itself? Sarah steeled her heart, but even in her resolve, the shadows lingered, watching, waiting. She had a gnawing sense that the final confrontation was still ahead. "Where are you?" she dared to call into the empty space, her voice trembling but determined. The answer came in a heavy silence that crept back, as if echoing her dread. She took a step forward, heart thudding in trepidation. Each second felt drawn out, heavy with anticipation. And then, like a dagger in the dark, a chilling thought pierced her mind. What if the truth she sought was far more terrifying than anything she had faced so far? With her heart hammering in her chest, Sarah stood in that unsettling echo of her home, panic nipping at her heels. The chilling silence felt alive, thick with the weight of knowing that her nightmare was far from over. Shadows flickered just out of sight, dancing in the corners of her mind, daring her to confront whatever lay ahead. "Mommy, help us!" The whispers floated through the air again, this time resonating deeper, echoing like a haunting lullaby sung from a past life. Her children's voices were sweet and desperate, tugging at her heartstrings like marionettes bound to her emotions. "No!" she shouted, the word bursting forth like a lit fuse, fueled by wrath and fear. "You will not take my children from me." The darkness shuddered as if her declaration was a challenge. Shadows morphed and twisted, solidifying into grotesque shapes, reflecting back all of her fears, each face a reminder of everything she had lost. She felt their ghostly hands reaching out, tugging at her feet, whispering secrets that made her shiver. "Face the truth," the shadows hissed in unison, their voices mingling with the echo of her children's pleas, warping into a chilling chorus that she could barely endure. Taking a brave step forward, Sarah felt a flicker of stubborn resolve burning within her, a flame ignited by a mother's fierce love. "I will not yield," she declared, her voice rising against the tide of despair. "Truth is a double-edged sword, Sarah." A shadow shrieked back from within the mass, taking form, a twisted version of Mr. Thompson emerging like a dark prophecy. His eyes glimmered, two pits of eternal hunger. "You are bound to this darkness just as they are." "No." She clenched her jaw, eyes narrowing. "I will free them." She surged forward, gripping the knife tightly, its presence now a lifeline in the tempest. The darkness recoiled momentarily, and she launched herself deeper into the depths of the shadows, each step heavy yet purposeful. Memories of sunlit laughs, warm embraces, bedtime stories thickened her resolve. It was all so real, a binding tether to her children and the light they represented. "Join us," the shadows cooed softly, an invitation laced with venom. "Give in. It's much easier." The air grew thicker, cloying with despair, wrapping around her throat. But as chilling fingers touched her, a heady spark ignited within her. "What you want is not who I am," she shouted, her voice erupting from her soul as she slashed at the darkness with the knife, light bursting forth like a supernova. Each swing of the blade seemed to split the shadows apart, revealing hints of light that flickered like distant stars. She caught glimpses of her children within the darkness, faces twisted in agony, hearts pounding with the burden of nightmares. "Hold on," she cried, pushing past the pain that threatened to suffocate her. "Mommy, please," they wailed, their voices breaking through the veil like shards of glass. Sarah's heart shattered at their cries. She plunged the knife forward again, this time seeking to pierce the very heart of the darkness. "You cannot keep us apart," she vowed, her voice echoing through the enigma, light bursting once more at the blade's touch. But the shadows writhed back violently, an anguished roar erupting in response, the walls rumbling as if the house itself was fighting against her defiance. "You'll never escape your truth," the creature howled, its voice rattling her bones. Yet, she felt lighter, freer, as her love pushed past every impeding fear, drowning out the infernal wrath. With renewed strength, she charged forward, the realization striking her it was her love that made her powerful. "Face it," she screamed, as the knife glimmered brighter and brighter until finally light exploded from the blade, filling the entire room with a blinding radiance. The shadows screamed, recoiling as if sunlight broke over an abyss. In that instant, a whirlwind of memories flooded her mind, laughter at the park, her children running through fields, all the love they shared. The image grew vivid until it consumed her. And as the darkness began to dissipate, the soft laughter of her children filled the air, not echoing from the shadows but wrapping around her heart. "Mommy, we're here," they called, joyful and real. With blinding light washing over her like a sunset breaking through dawn, Sarah felt warmth enveloping her. The room flickered like a movie reel stuck in rapid spin, each frame unveiling bright memories of joy until it materialized into one conclusive image, her children standing before her, unscathed alive. "Mommy!" They rushed toward her, their familiar arms wrapping around her waist, safe and pure. And as the darkness melted into streams of harmless smoke, Sarah gathered them into her embrace, heart swelling with relief. "We're together," she whispered, tears of joy spilling down her cheeks. With the last remnants of the darkness vanished, she took a deep breath and let go of her fears. Finally, she understood the truth had always been her love, it was the beacon that would guide her family through any nightmare. They were home. As she watched her children twirl around the living room clapping, laughter ringing brighter than any memory of fear, she felt a surge of gratitude for her community and their struggles that had shaped them. Sarah vowed to lend her strength to those still entangled in the shadows. Love was a powerful weapon against fear, and she would wield it fiercely, and as the sun peeked through the windows, bathing the room in warmth, they stepped outside together. The cul-de-sac was alive again, sunlight casting shadows that no longer felt ominous. "Let us play," Jake yelled, and with Emily by his side, they tore off to the yard, laughter trailing them like ribbons in the wind. Sarah stood for a moment, breathing in the fresh air, the day brighter than ever. The shadows had retreated, but stories of courage still lingered at the edge of her mind. She would be their voice, a protector of the light that would never fade, and with that resolution shining in her heart, she stepped forward into a new chapter of endless possibilities. Now that you've journeyed through darkness with Sarah, make sure you don't miss more captivating stories that lie ahead. You need to subscribe now, hit that button to stay in the loop. Smash the like button, give the algorithm some love. Flood the comments section with your thoughts about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how love conquers fear. Only true fans understand the significance of your support.